And then taking a step back, something we haven't talked about yet is going through a movement screen. It's, in my opinion, the first step that you should always take. Whether that's online or remote, or if you're in the Minneapolis area, we can get you in person. Either way, we are able to help you no matter where you are in the United States, and it allows us to see, okay, here's how you're moving, here's some impingements or some areas of opportunity as far as increasing range of motion, basically, so you don't get hurt. And then not only that, we're going to point out that, but we're also going to give you some things to work on to improve those range of motion things. And I feel like that is step one. And then there's different ways to progress out of there as well that we could talk about it either here or later on.
Totally. Kind of intrigued on this movement screen though. Is there a way to watch progress throughout time on that outside of the actual performance in the EverFit weight lifted times whatever? Like, can I know that I'm getting better in my movement throughout
Well, I'm
time?
so glad you asked. Yes, there is. There's so I mean, when we're going through the movements, it's 13 different movements that we're going to bring you through. We grade them on a scale of 1 to 10, and that 1 to 10 range is the actual range of motion that you have. So we start off head to toe. So let's start off shoulder mobility. Okay, you're at 60% range of motion in your shoulder or thoracic spine mobility. And then we'll touch base on that either 1 or 2 months in, depending on how often you're doing it, what you're working on, and then we can communicate back and forth there on your progress. And then, okay, holy cow, you've increased from 60 to 85% or whatever it is. It could be anywhere along the chain, all the way down the body into the lower body as well. But yes, there's a test, there's a retest, there's things that we'll give you to work on specifically mobility related. But then, one thing that some of the guys in the group will do as well is they'll take videos of themselves. Hey, here's me doing squats. Here's me doing a deadlift or presses or push-ups or things like that. Super, super helpful because I'm able to relate it specifically to your movement. A lot of times I'll text or write whatever the feedback is, the cues that I would put in there. But then a lot of times I'll also send a video of myself doing specifically what I'm talking about. Okay, here's what you're doing. Here's what we want to be able to do. So that's just another way to constantly check in and know what specifically you're doing that is not ideal, and then what we can do ideally to move you out of there.
So I'm a guy who, say for example, I'm at bench pressing 1 time my body weight, deadlifting 2.5 times. I am just on fire right now, and I want to get into the really complex movements. Why would you recommend I do a movement screen if I am that strong already?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times, if you haven't done a movement screen, just because you're stronger, you could go at a really high capacity. It still doesn't reduce your risk for injury. And so that is a lot of times, like I see with high level athletes. I've had professional athletes, collegiate athletes, high level athletes at other levels as well come in, and they're just like, oh no, I'm here, I obviously must move well, and that's not always the case, right? So moving well and going at a really high capacity or just athletically speaking, they're two different things. So if at worst it's going to be, you're going to get a second opinion, hey, you're doing all the right things. I could tell you I've yet to see that in the many hundreds of these things that I've done. Not one person has walked out of there just like, hey, you don't have anything to work on. So there's always something to work on, to think about, and then we can give you things to measure, specific implements to be able to increase range of motion or strength or capacity or whatever.